It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Gerald DeMello, who is a fixture in the Hawai'i Island community with engagement and participation in things like the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce, Historical Plaques Committee, among a lot of other things. And so today he's titled his presentation, Preserving Hawaii's History, talking about Honokā. And so today we'd like to introduce Gerald DeMello.
Well, it's nice to have that kind of introduction. Let me just start by saying good morning and aloha.
Aloha.
And it's really nice to be on campus to see many of you again. I don't get a chance to see you very often. We live in the same town, we don't. Kind of makes my day to see you here. But I should note for some of the students, I was here in administration for like 23 years. I was faculty at the community college for 10, and I worked in the governor's office for about four years. And I enjoyed my experience here. The people, very precious, you know. And so I was honored when I was asked to come to talk. I said, gee, kind of far removed, you know, but I'll give it a whirl. And, the kind of thing that we'll talk about really requires working and engaging the community. And it kind of like ties in with the title Kuleana with regard to the community, because it's our Kuleana to kind of like our responsibility to try to nurture the whole coast and the town. I'll give you a sense for a while. But in my work here, I had a number of hats. One of the hats was to engage the community and to engage the ledge. And I learned some lessons, throughout the years, as we all do. But one of the things that I learned, a lesson learned that I apply to what we're doing here, historic preservation, that I take away is building relationships and confidences. You build relationships, you build trust, you build confidences, you can do a lot of things. And part of what we're doing here is we have to engage the community to get their confidence to share with us some of the artifacts, some of the endearments. So we place it in a little tiny heritage center, like a museum. And our director is a graduate of Hilo. Her name is Nicole Garcia. And her assistant is Sandy Takahashi. And I don't know if many of you know Margaret Shiva. She's a part of it, but she lives in Hilo. So she's writing grants for graduation. But, preserving Hawaii's history in terms of Honokā town, it is a very, very small slice of Hawaii's history. And it's just a slice of time. Because if you need to think about the large picture, we're here for just a slice of time, in terms of human existence, if you will. But we kind of felt that, it was worthy highlighting Honokā, because the town is kind of unique in this context. If you take a view from 60,000 feet, it's a contiguous setting, meaning on Main Street, called Mookini Street, it's 1 mile long, from one end to the other end. And you don't see that in Hawaii today. You used to see those kinds of towns, but no longer. And we felt we're going to document this community history, but also people history. That's where the trust comes in. And we wanted to document the history because we felt, with the closure of sugar companies, which was 20 years ago, it was kind of like a little downturn, and it was kind of demoralizing. So we wanted to uplift that town. So the contributions of the families, the people, the workers, it's not a history of kings and queens. It's a history of shopkeepers, workers, everyday people. It's not a history of the chairman of Hawaii Island or the governor for the president. It's everyday history. We call it nearby history. And we felt that by tying to the families, we kind of enrich the community we have. People come back and say, gee, we talk about different things, about how good they feel about having their grandfather's picture there with a story. And then finally, enriching the community, but it also helps what we call soft tourism. And that is, it helps the small mom and pops. It helps the small businesses because the history component brings people in, people sense for that. And of course, it becomes an economic stimulus because people come in to see the town. And so the efforts to help cultivate Manukau town, to have it be a stop in town rather than bypass town. How many of you have been up to Waimea lately? Anybody stop in Manukau? Hey, all right. Stop the old. Okay. Okay. So we want to do what we're doing to have it a stop in town. Yeah. To help the mom and pops, to help the businesses, to help nurture the history. So people coming in, they feel good about telling their stories. So we have docents who talk about their grandfather went here, this and that. So it's kind of a cool kind of thing. Yeah? Now, how do we do this? We kind of said what we want to do. We begin preserving. Now, Manukau is roughly about 39 miles from Hilo. It's about 14 miles from Waimea. And at the time that Manukau was the second largest town on this island, there was no Kamuela. You had Pahoa. You didn't have Keao, you had Bulao. But you didn't have towns. But you could drive up the Hamakua coast, starting in Papaiako, Pipikeo, Unamu, Hakalao, and you can still see some vestiges of little village communities. Each one of them, all the way up to Manukau, Manukau was the largest, would have a post office and a movie theater, and the different camps. And you get a sense for that, but there was a richness there. Now, all of it's gone, for the most part. Unamu, I guess people are trying to do stuff. So we have said there, gee, maybe we have a story to tell. Maybe we can help with this. So we put in highway signage. Let me see if I can get some of this going here. So, welcome to Manukau town, that's up. And we put the signage in. We've got ground signs because we can relate if visitors come from out of state, the ground sign was used nationally. So basically, we've got 5 of these on Mamalako Highway. From Hilo into Manukau, we've got signage coming in from Waimea. If you go to visit Waipio Valley, you come back in, you've got signage. So it's kind of interesting, but the sense of, I'll show you one point. The idea that I talked about, building relationships. You don't build relationships, this could never be done. Because the loops you gotta jump through to get signage. It's amazing. Just a simple signage. And so having had experience putting up the University of Hilo signage, I learned how to do it. So we got that going. And of course, the epicenter of sugar on the island was Manukau town. And so when you go to Manukau, there's about 6 murals like this that tell the story of the town. Be it in Hawai'i village, Paniola town, Sugar town, as such. And sugar closes roughly around 1994. This is the last harvest. There was a big parade, big celebration. And then following that, closeouts. A lot of empty spaces. And so we went, whoa, we gotta try and turn around. So what I gave you is kind of a cut and paste. Okay, I got 15 minutes. But it's a picture of my wife and I. We are like the 4th generation benefactors of a Ferrero building in Manukau. And I had no idea and this is what happened to me. And I know I would continue working here. But based on that, we felt that the architectural integrity of the town, you don't see it anywhere else. Yeah, you don't see it on Maui. Hawaii, Hanapepe, but it's kind of splintered here and there. And so we felt that our so-called revitalization, if you will, was linked to our historical past. So a signage coming in, the brochure each of you have, relates to a walking tour. You can do self-guided walking tour. We're trying to drum up someone's interest to have a small business to actually do a walking tour. I mean later. But, we look at the identity of the town, and if it's just one building, forget it. Yeah. So the Kuleana responsibility is to work with everyone, build that relationship. Because when you have 38 buildings together, which is in town, then you got something. Because then you have, a sense that historical significance, kind of a specialness. And, for the town itself, civic pride and livability, because people live in that town. Upstairs. And we felt that oftentimes, small sliver of history, the plantation history, the history of the town, oftentimes is overlooked. So we felt, we're going to try to do this. So, try to bring this thing. And so when you walk through the town and you use that brochure, and we mentioned it in the first two sentences, it's like a step backward into the 19th and 20th century. And most of the buildings, are built 1900. There's a couple 1898, and up to about 1927. There's 38 structures, 32 comply. We didn't want to do it historic district because we didn't want the county to zone it, because if they did, none of the merchants would come in. We go to see again, building relationships, building trust. We go to the store. There's a couple of stores there, fourth generation, the hardware store. 100 years. We go there and we talk to them. They go, hey, Joe, you know what you guys doing? My grandfather told my father, told me that don't get involved in government. Don't get involved in regulation, because the plantation always tried to shut us down. They want people to go to a plantation store. So we're going to maintain our independence. So this sounds to me like something that we heard. I said, hey, no problem. No problem. Stay where you're at. Watch us. If we are successful, we don't know if we are, we just started with 2 or 3, then you can say to yourself, I'll join you. Or you can say, hey, you know what? We're going to be part of it. Status quo. So we did that. 3rd year, come over there. This is pretty neat, all the plaques. How are we going to get one? And I should note that Dr. Wu out here, he helped us in a lot of different ways out in town. And Dr. Richie's not here. I'm sure our historian here communicates with a lot of those people she had, our directors and students. So we're all in it together. But I think that's a good statement. Trust, confidence, and we're all in it together. That's the message we try to get. Now, so we worked on closeout. That's an actual picture of a closeout sale. What's interesting is when that's a theater, 1931, it's on the registry. I think that you can't see the plaque. Oh, the plaque's on the side. But this building, 1927. You notice the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The bank people told us that if you look at the steps that they put up the bank, this was the 2nd largest town. They said great promise because the sugar industry was something that was really flourishing. And if you go to downtown Hilo, with the Pacific Museum, Tsunami Museum, and you go to the front part, there's steps. When you had steps going up to the bank, it symbolically represented the idea that it was promised to the town. So, I promise back then. So, we thought that was pretty neat. And of course, the theater still does movies. 1931. So you miss a film here in town, call them up, you can drive out there, have a good lunch, talk story. That's the university employee, probably what? With Stephanie Kim. And that's a plaque that we put up. It's the kind of plaques that you're gonna see on maybe 20 of the 38 buildings. We're still working on it, but when you do the walking tour, it tells you, the brochure tells you the history of the town. So, and we also have, there's a peace parade that we try to, nurture as well. The Western Week, Plantation Years, which is coming up in October. We tried that for the first time. And this is kind of interesting. During World War II, when Commonwealth had no bombs, Bucker Ranch didn't want any drinking. They didn't want any of the guys to come up early in the morning. They wanted to be at work, 6 o'clock. No bars. It was hardly anything there. And so the people from Camp Kilohana, there were like 20,000 Marines up there. When they took R&R, they do it on the top, because you had many bars, many theaters, some gambling, and da-da-da-da-da. And so, when you get done drinking, there's pictures of the bar here, and Marines lined up here, first guy, all the way, step back, next point, and all the way through. But when they get done, they would always go to Cafe Paradise, and they would eat a meal on was signed in, but they couldn't remember when they went to the back to the base. So they would tell the folks there, after you guys get done having your beer, having your drinks, before you come home, go to a corner restaurant and get long soup, which is signed in. So from that period of time to now, we have a signage. And the sad part of it is, Camp Kilohana, a lot of these Marines that shipped out were the ones that went to Aurora and Guadalcanal were major battles. So for a number of them, this is the last stop. So we honor that, and people come in and say, hey, my grandfather was at Camp Kilohana. You guys got any kind of info? So we share, and then the Heritage Center with Nicole, we do a little with that as well. So, and of course the murals. Okay, so these are the murals that you see around town. We'll come to Katsugoto. Here's Katsugoto. This is a memorial. Again, the library's here. If you looked up from the library out the window, you'd see where, unfortunately, it was very, very sad, very unjust, where they hung him. That's what they did, because he was considered to be like a first labor organizer. When people came in from Japan, not knowing the contract, he would know English, so he would kind of go through it with them. And he got to be someone that wasn't very promising and very happy to the community. But see if I can find that there. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a painful history, but then again, as a historian, I tell you, you need to have the big picture on both sides. Painful and very challenging, because that's a sense of when you define social justice, when you go and look at what happened and the people hung in, you really walk away. So it was an uncomfortable time and difficult to remember. But then again, one of the faculty, Betsy Wasaki, did some research on it. She's got a book on it. In 1973, way back, very young, almost young, still long hair, I was faculty, and Dr. Toyama was from Macau. And he was faculty there. And again, talking about Katsugoto way back then. He was a Macau school graduate. He didn't know anything about it. And later on, when we did this, he came, in addition to being a Buddhist Academy principal, he was also in Waimea, he was also a principal there. And he became a Buddhist priest. So he came to bless. So he leaned over to me and says, hey, you know about this long time ago? And so that was kind of nice, so we put that up. And so that's part of history of the school thing. Walk around. Anybody have a sense for who the workers are? This on this side. Just call out someone. Not you, but talk to you. Take a guess. Who came to do sugar?
Oh, Japanese.
Japanese? No. Portuguese? No.
Filipino.
Filipino? No.
Chinese.
Portuguese? No.
Okinawan.
Okinawan? No. Puerto Rican? No.
Chinese.
You never guess.
So,
Never guess. I took up the time here. But you ready for this one? Ukrainians.
Oh.
Ukrainians came to Hawaii Island. To do contract workers. Yeah. And if you go up to, they were here, primarily the Mountain View area. And I went to school with, at Kilohana, with the Moravians. And we all called them Russian, was the nickname. But really they were Ukrainians. And I don't know if they knew that either. but yeah, they were the descendants of. Yeah, and so when you drive up, I can't pronounce it very well, but it's like Zach Road. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so when you drive up toward Mountain View, on the right hand side, you see there's a couple of names that we always thought was Russian and really Ukrainian. And here's a book. Ukrainian workers. And I never knew that they were Ukrainian. I always thought they were Russian. So, part of our why we do what we do and what a small slice of history to preserve is because we need to preserve history, our history, invisible. Invisible as the fact that they were here. So, and when you go to a account, it comes alive with the history. And when you visit the account, go to here's the club that probably what his father owns. And this is where the history center is located. And again, without building relationships, you couldn't have that center because you have to pay rent. So you want to have a balance. You want to have a community spirit. You want to have an uplift of the community. So it was that way. So that's kind of, hey, how are you? Yeah, incidentally, there's a plaque on Yolanda's dad. Yeah. Because her father was, I don't want to embarrass her, but in addition to leaving school at 17, going to the army, coming back, learning technical skills, working for a plantation and college employee, he developed, the Kuleana ditch, the Kohala ditch. From there, you got water because the area does not have water. He figured out how to best do this. Yeah. And so back then, we had just become a state. Her dad was asked to go to Egypt to help work as a team with a lot of people on the Aswan Mountain. And then there was a battle. After 6 months, he came back. But in addition to, being 17, her dad, 4 Bronze Stars, military, and a lot of recognition. I know you're kind of teary-eyed. So we did a plaque on her family because we wanted to have families from the community recognize her dad came to the top of the list. But again, relationships are important. For any kind of historic preservation, any kind of work, any kind of history, you gotta talk to people, and to access their photos, to access their stories, to tell you their story, you gotta have the trust, which is something that I learned at UAG at the state legislature. Which is, kind of funny, but you work with 51 people. Okay, so that's it.